And welcome to the Awaken Alive podcast, everyone. This is your host, Mark Smith. I am here today with Don Giafardino. And guys, we're really excited. We have our next edition of Mad Fit Magazine coming out. Stoked about this. This will be issue number 3. So if you haven't gotten a subscription yet, make sure you come out to the website, IamAwakenAlive.com. Get yours today. You can get a digital or print, or you can get both, actually. Have it shipped to your house right there on your iPad, whatever's convenient. Great magazine, full of resources. Lots of guys that have been on our show have contributed to the magazine. So if you follow the show and want to learn more from some of these people, definitely check out Mad Fit Magazine on our website. Want to welcome to the show today, like I said, our guest, Don Giafardino. I'm sorry I
That's
butchered
it.
that.
Giafardino. Yeah, you did good.
Um, Don, welcome to the show. Don is with Adex Clubs, and he's done some personal training down in Florida as well. We actually have we're very familiar with the Adex Clubs. Those things are sweet. We're gonna have to talk about that a little bit, but I don't want to take up too much of his airtime. I want to about himself some. Meet the man. Don, take it away.
You got it. How are you today, Mark? This is great to be on the show, and I'm glad to be part of all of this that's going on. You guys are out of North Carolina, I believe.
We
Where
are out of
you're at?
simultaneously North Carolina is where I live. Mike lives in, and then Mark DeGrasse, our other partner, just moved from California to Austin. So
Oh,
um,
he is in Austin now. All right. I didn't know if he moved or not.
he moved back
Congratulations.
in Austin this week. Actually, I think it was at their trampoline setup, so all is right with the kids. I did see that on Facebook.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. Anyway, glad to be on the show, like I said, and I don't know if any of the listeners know who I am. I am the creator and developer of the Adex Clubs, which are adjustable. The only club on the market right now that's an adjustable exercise club. It goes from 3.5 pounds to 25 pounds, and we also have the Mace. The Adex Mace is with that too. That we're doing competitions with the Vintage Strength Game Sports League that's associated with the All America's Kettlebell Alliance, and we're finding that a lot of kettlebell sport people are bridging over to that. And so, with all that going on, it's also a great way to train. And I've been doing this since 2012, actually 2013. I actually quit my job, and that's when I
What was
became.
your job?
I used to be a crane. At the time, I was a crane operator. I
Oh,
was a crane
cool.
operator
My
for
kids love looking at the cranes.
Yeah, I was a crane operator for about 10 years. I left the restaurant field, got into construction, and I said, well, I'm going to learn how to, pull levers on this machinery. They gave me a shovel when I first started doing construction, and I dug holes. And from there, I said, well, if I work hard, can I learn how to run your machines? And they're like, yeah. So the guys saw I had an interest. They started teaching me how to do it. I was working for an underground company, underground utility company, digging holes, making very little money. Um, and I said, I'm going to tough it out and learn how to become a heavy equipment operator. Well, eventually I got the opportunity to run cranes. I found a crane company that was hiring. And with some other previous things that I had in my life, I had the skill set to be able to go in there as a mechanic and then get put on as a crane operator within a few months. I was taught because, they said I was trainable. So, I was very receptive of doing it. And it was kind of an interesting time in my life. All of a sudden I went from being a restaurant guy to, a crane operator. And, I was like, this is great now. And I worked hard with these guys, and it was a physical job. I was also a tech for the crane company, and we had some older cranes that we switched over electronic systems in them and things like that. So there was a lot of work to do with them, and then the maintenance on them. And plus, I was an operator, so I was always busy. And I was very thankful that that was a time in my life when I realized that all my experiences in life were adding up to something, and I was becoming aware of that. And that was in my early 40s, just as I turned 40, I believe, or 41. And from there, I had gone through, I was working for a few years at this crane company and enjoying it. I really enjoyed I was afraid of heights when I first started working there and got over that really quickly, I have to say. I wasn't a tower crane operator. My crane wasn't a tower crane. I had truck cranes. I had
Okay.
I initially started out with a boom truck, which they call them, which is a smaller crane. It was a 30-ton crane, and then I went to the heavier cranes, the 65, the ones that look like military equipment going down the street that are really oversized and everything. And I gravitated up towards those. But, you know, I would do a lot of work, and then I'd fill in for some of the tower crane operators when they wanted time off or if they had, you know, to go somewhere. So I was, you know, also a fill-in too. So it was really, the experience was really good. I got over my fear of heights with that, and I'm glad I did, because I had gotten laid off from the company and when the bottom fell out of the economy in 2008. And I ended up going back into the restaurants a little bit, and then got hired by a cell phone tower company who needed a crane operator, and they found out I could climb also. So then all of a sudden my workload increased, and it was making really good money working with these guys, not only being an operator, but being a tower climber. And what I found was most of the guys were under 35 years old that were the climbers. And I got hired at 48 to do this. And, you know, they would call me old man and everything like that. And they're like, you can climb that tower. It's 200 feet high. And I'm like, yeah, I'll climb it with you on my back, you know, because I've been in fitness for quite a while. So, you know, it was going on pretty good with that.
Now let me ask you this, because a lot of people have these physically demanding jobs like you had here, and you said you've been into fitness for a while. Were you finding balance to still get time to do some training that would help you in your job and do your job, and also keep you on the job? I know a lot of guys that work these hard, tough blue collar jobs. I mean, unbelievable work ethic. Like my uncle says, man's got a shovel, man's got work, and that's basically how you started.
Yeah, yeah.
But a lot of these guys, they're like, physical, I don't have time to go to the gym or the desire because I'm so worn out. But
yes,
it seems that you were also putting in time.
Yes, I put in time to constantly exercise. I never really, well, there was a time when I was, you know, like in the backpack story, that I was injured, and the injury lagged on for like 12 years. It was chronic. And so it was a shoulder issue. And that's why I got into clubs. But while I was working for the crane company, when I was working digging holes also, I would do exercises that wouldn't, you know, bother my shoulder as much. I wasn't doing any bench pressing at all. Couldn't do push-ups. Overhead pressing was kind of limited. So I'd have to do like different things. Like I was learning on my own how to gravitate from being like the meathead bodybuilder, power lifter / guy, you know, that area where everybody gets into fitness. And then I was saying, well, now I've got to, you know, work around this shoulder issue that I have that I'm in pain with. So that led to like different ways of training, and ultimately led to the club training. But I was doing things like I couldn't squat because I couldn't get my shoulder to hold the weight when it was racked on my back. I did not even consider front squats. I could still deadlift, and I would deadlift.
I didn't even consider front squats till I was like well into, like probably a decade or more into fitness. And I don't know why. I guess you just taught the back squat in high school and just roll with it. So but I knew, actually kind of thought you were going to say that, like, oh, I never thought about the front squat, but it's
never did.
Most people aren't even taught the front squat, and it's, in my opinion, actually a better lift because it reaches more people. You and I could have been front squatting.
Yes, yes. You're
and
right.
Still taking care of our lower body and our legs, and knees and hips, all that stuff under load, you know, but we didn't know about it. So it's funny that a lot of people don't know about the front squat when they first start off. But again, that shows how one dimensional is and how we're trying to break that mold.
I think we're in an exciting time in fitness, you know, and I have to cite that it's CrossFit's fault. It really is. CrossFit with all of its, you know, like when it hit the scene, and believe me, I'm not a CrossFitter at all. My wife is, but I'm not, and she's an L1 coach, and I do compete in CrossFit events, and sometimes I have to ask them, well, what's this exercise? Like, you know, like I didn't know what thrusters were in one of the events that I got to. I'm like, what the hell's a thruster? You know, and they're like, you know, they were on the 4th watt of the day and you don't know what that is. You don't do CrossFit, the judge was saying to me. And I'm like, no. And he's like, that's like a staple exercise. They had to show me in the competition what a thruster was. And I'm like, okay, I got it. And
squat and press, got it.
yeah, but you know, like you know, it's the you know, the like letting the momentum from your legs blow the weight off your shoulders, kind of.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I got it. And you know, like, you know, so I do try to do like a lot of functional things. I don't train with CrossFit, but I do see its potential as far as the fitness, and then that in and of itself exploded the functional fitness market. Now, all this was happening right at the time when I was sitting with my prototype Adex Club next to my computer when I'd get online and, you know, I'm trying to like figure out how to market this thing. And I'm going, you know, like I understood that, like, wow, CrossFit like will grab anything, you know, they'll take concrete blocks and run around with them, you know, that's CrossFit, you know. And I'm saying this functional fitness thing, which opened up the area to functional fitness for people who didn't like CrossFit per se, that I think that brought it out. And now I like it I couldn't have asked for a better time, in other words, to debut my product. I mean, like everything was right. All the planets were in line and the tide was at the right height, and, you know, it was perfect time. So I came to the realization, and this is kind of funny, and I'm going to say I became awake and alive on May 23rd of 2013. It was a Sunday. It's my sister's birthday. And I remember this at 3 p.m. I called my manager at the crane company and I said to him, I'm not coming in anymore. And he said, you're not giving me a 2-week notice? And I said, you didn't give me a 2-week notice when you laid me off in 2008 or 2009. I said, why would I do that? And he goes, okay, fair. He says, it's fair. You know, we're even. And I said, okay. And I started dealing with selling my Adex clubs and started to make an online presence to see what would happen. And here I am today, you know, 3 years later. And, you know, this is my business now. You know, I've been doing it since then. I'm still eating bologna, you know, I'm still working hard, and, you know, I'm not getting rich off of it, but I'm coming on places like your podcast here, and you know, talking with other people and doing a lot of seminars and workshops and writing articles. So it's getting the exposure and just the, you know, the growth of it from people that are athletes, trainers, and just regular people that train with clubs and maces. Now it's growing so much. You know, I see it every day, and more people are friending me. It's very exciting, and I'm really thankful for the way that it's going, and I'm making sure that I always put out a good product.
Dude, that's awesome, and you know, I wish for your continued success, definitely with the clubs, and
Thank you.
I'm glad you're able to get more exposure and more time, and you know, we're certainly happy as Awake and Alive to help everybody get exposure. That to us, being a platform for knowledge and for all these coaches and minded people to have a voice. That's really what we want to be about. Dude, I thought it was interesting what you said about CrossFit and the timing of functional fitness. So I kind of see there was like 2 roads that intersected more or less.
Oh yeah.
So back in the day, I was in gyms, and I had gone through a training certification. It was, and the guy I studied under was very functional at the time. Really a great guy. I learned a lot from him, and I consider him my first mentor. Back then, functional fitness sort of looked like standing on one foot and twisting with a medicine ball, or standing on a Bosu ball and doing a curl and a press, or some twisting moves. All these things that were done with like dumbbells, Bosu balls, and medicine balls, and bands. It kind of was like this funky stuff, like, but you could do it in a normal conventional gym, like a Gold's gym, right? So you had these people, but it always kind of looked silly. Nothing looked really edgy about it. It always, like, the bodybuilders are always looking at you like, what is this goofy bullshit these guys are doing? They look like idiots.
Exactly. You have to
Then
contend with the
CrossFit comes
meathead
around,
mentality.
right?
What's that?
Right. So then CrossFit comes around, right?
Yes.
And CrossFit, in its nature, I certainly have reservations and disagreement with some of CrossFit, but I agree with you 100% that, and open the gate to people's eyes, that there's another way to train. CrossFit comes, and CrossFit is like, it's kind of like the Beatles and the Stones, right? This functional fitness that I was doing, and a lot of my contemporaries were doing. It's kind of like the Beatles, like the good boys, right? But they rock and roll. It's like the badass Rolling Stones edginess side of functional. Like, hey man, we can throw around some real weight, go pick up a rock and push a sled and be badass,
and do a gymnastic movement all in between this.
So all this starts to come together. Of course, then you get like the negative press of CrossFit due to the high injury rate and sort of things. But then again, it comes down to the same thing. Press when you're talking about marketing, right? So you've got negative and positive press on it. It created a huge window for all of us.
Yes.
And then have growth and have a voice. And out of that, you got all these sub communities. Like guys like you and me can now get together and talk, but people understand sort of where we're coming from. Like, oh, unconventional training, not a world gym. I don't even think world gym's around anymore. I think they got bought out a long time ago. But on a machine doing leg curls, and said maybe I'm getting under a bar and squat, or maybe I'm picking up a rock and carrying it, or I'm swinging a club to get the full range of motion in my shoulders. Talking about that. And again, that's, what's cool about the clubs and the maces, you're talking about, practice. To India. We've talked about the history of that before on the show, which I think is fascinating.
Yes. That's, I mean, these tools are 2,000-3,000 years old, and the training programs are ancient. These moves were all the basis for sword fighting and fighting with the weapons they had at the time. They were training with clubs, or they were actually using lighter weight clubs in battle. And they discovered that guys that were swinging heavier clubs would have more stamina in the battle. So that they began adopting training, and that all developed out of there, because there's a way to fight that everybody knew how to learn how to do. But then there was also a way to practice that fighting and develop your skills and hone your skills and your strength. And they realized that fitness, these were the people that were saying, these warriors, I guess they was all from the Middle East. So I don't even know what you would call them. Like, they're akin to gladiators, I guess, that they would be, or Roman legion guys, that they would be, the army of the time was training that way. And they knew thousands of years ago that fitness was part of life, because you had to be fit in order to survive, the survival of the fittest. And the resurgence in the clubs is just fantastic. The club and mace training, a rotational style of training, especially with also the rise of the MMA people that train, and jiu-jitsu people and wrestling. More and more I'm seeing that those communities are growing. And this type of training plugs directly into it, because you've got the rotational aspects of it, of the trunk rotation, leg rotation, shoulder rotation, and that plays a big part in developing the strength throughout the degrees of movement there, the degrees of range of motion.
Well, I was a high school wrestler, and then I got into MMA and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for a while, and didn't have a clue what a mace or a club was. And I think that it would have been an absolute game changer had I known then what I know now. I mean, everybody I guess can say that, but I'm thankful I do know it now as a parent. I mean, my kids, I think, will probably get into wrestling. I think it's a good sport to get kids into. And knowing that, knowing the benefits of the club, especially for that sport, the grappling arts. I can't think of a better tool. I really can't. I know so many guys when I wrestled that had shoulder injuries. It was most of the time it's just they could not handle the torque that was being put on their shoulder. They had a tool and the knowledge to train with the mace or clubs, back when I was in high school. I feel like a lot of those injuries wouldn't have happened. I mean, you probably would still have some shoulder injuries, but I mean, we'd have at times 3, 4, 5 guys out on the team at one time.
Oh yeah, no, that's something that is. I talk with more and more people about this type of training and their experiences with it. I'll give you an example. David Glisson out of Mississippi. He does a lot of club and mace training, and he does Bulgarian bag training. He was also a wrestler and an MMA style trainer and fighter. He was saying that children should be, he says, when your kids are getting interested in sports, he says, don't give them a weight set. They need to start swinging clubs and to develop their coordination and their pattern and their strength throughout the whole range of these circular movements to develop every degree of strength. He says, and after they get a proficient at that, then that's when you introduce them to weights. But you begin with the clubs. You begin with body weight exercises, push-ups, air squats, things like that. And then he says you introduce the clubs as they're getting on in their sport. And then from there, to keep the club as also, a way to either, they can decide whether or not they want to just stay with the club or mace style of training or go into the weightlifting training if they need to go into the weightlifting training, for something where they got to put on size and weight for football or for wrestling, change weight classes and things like that. But he is a firm believer in that children should start with this, as right after body weight exercises. And it's starting to make a lot of sense to me, the more I think about it. I think it's he's like
what was his name again?
David Glisson.
David Glisson. Glisson.
Glissen, like glistening water.
Oh, Ian. Okay.
And
I'll have to look him up.
Yeah, he is a wealth of knowledge about training, about club swinging, Bulgarian bags. He runs a company called Southern Fried Strength Training in Mississippi. I believe they're in Manhattan.
That's an awesome name.
Isn't it?
Name.
Yeah.
Of course, being in Mississippi. Now you're down in Florida, right?
Yes, sir. I'm down in South Florida. I'm
here in North Carolina, and he's in Mississippi, so we get that. We get that Southern reference right there.
Yeah.
Mike's gonna be listening. Mike, our producer in Colorado, is gonna be listening. He's like, "What are they talking about some fried chicken for?" Because he's gonna have no idea. He doesn't know anything about that.
Well, I'm originally not a Florida boy. I've been down here for 30 years, but I'm because I'm an old guy. I'm 53 years old, so which I thought I had that shut off. I apologize for that.
Don't worry, I'll get it.
Whatchamacallit? I grew up in a metropolitan New York City area. I lived it was about a 25-minute express train ride from where I lived to downtown Manhattan. So I was like right on the edge of the Bronx, and everything kind of like followed suit over there. And I left there in my young 20s, and I came to Florida, and I've been here since. But I haven't really adopted all the Southern charms, because the area that I live in is pretty much misplaced New Yorkers. And it's kind of funny.
I was going to say, your late 20s is a bit early for retirement in Florida, which is the joke that Florida's nothing but retired Yankees.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was, especially the county that I lived in. And, that was a big retirement area. There used to be nobody here in the summertime. I remember like back in 87, 88, you could drive on the interstate here on I-95 and you'd pass 3 cars. Now you get out there at 1 in the morning and it's like, it's like at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it's just jam packed. It's horrible. But, this area is pretty much like, people that were from the Northeast, and they're condensed in the area that I'm here. So, and it's very heavily populated. I'm about 30 minutes north of Miami, and I'm 30 minutes south of West Palm Beach. So I'm kind of like stuck in between the two big cities there, and I'm not too far away from Fort Lauderdale, which, does have its moments sometimes. But it's a good area to promote things. I find that the club training is going well down here with people being interested in it. So that's a good thing. The people are receptive, and I think people are receptive of it anywhere. When you get to that type of that type of training, and it's something interesting, and it looks like something that's cool to do. The cool factor of the clubs is pretty high. That's when you
It's
can
like swinging a weapon. Everybody thinks it's cool because that's like they look at
exactly.
no matter where you come from, as far as combat or your brain, you're gonna be like, that looks like it could be a weapon. And other people be
Yes,
like, that is a weapon.
that is a weapon.
Definitely.
Yeah,
But I think it's a great conversation starter. I mean, if you're out there in the park swinging, especially the look of the long you guys have,
the
it's just
mace.
a
Oh yeah,
really cool look to it. I think somebody come up to you and just be like, hey, what's that about? And like,
yeah.
you could really get into a conversation about it.
Sure, you could show them a whole bunch of different things.
Sorry, in the background, my toddler woke up from his nap, so
Listen, being a dad is very
in the background.
important, and there's nothing wrong with that. But
It's the heart and soul of Awaken Live. We're all dads, guys that run the
that's
company. We're all
that is awesome.
we all have kids.
Yeah, I've got three. I've got two from my marriage that are mine, and then Lisa brought one daughter that's the same age into the fray. So we've got three daughters that are 27, 26, and 25 now, and that's kind of interesting. Like when they all get together around the dinner table, and the topics and stuff like that. And my oldest owns her own business. She's in the fitness industry also. She's been in it for years,
Oh, very
and
cool.
she has a very successful business. She's a competitive bodybuilder, and my younger one she's by nature a dancer and an artist, and she does fitness, very subtle fitness. She likes yoga and things. She likes a little bit of club training, not so much the heavier stuff, but the lighter, flowy stuff that she can mix ballet and dance movement with. And then the other one is kind of like Lisa's kid is kind of dabbles into it. She's in and out of it. And, we're trying to get her to, live a little more fitness aware. And, she's trying to, make her way. She's getting on in life with her career. She's getting her career started and everything, so she's kind of excited about that. So she has time for nothing but that right now. So, but it'll all come, because the kids understand when they see the parents taking the time to take care of themselves and exercise, and especially like us, we are in the fitness business. And I'm not going to push it on my kids to do it, but they got to do it on their own. I think that's important, that they see and pass along to the next generation the importance of fitness and being able to do things at different ages in your life. Because I remember when I saw my dad at 50 years old or 53 years old, and I saw him slowly declining in his physicality, from his 40s, and he played he played softball 2 nights a week in a men's league up until he was 55. So he was a fairly active guy. He was an avid golfer once he retired for the third time. But I saw what he didn't do a regular fitness program. But he knew the value of fitness, because when it was time to get, springtime, all of a sudden he wanted to lift weights with us when we were kids. And then, like he would jog a little bit and things like that to kind of like get back in shape. But then he'd, pork up over the winter time. and he didn't make a lifestyle out of it where we are, how old are you, Mark?
I'm 32.
You're
But
32.
Yeah, and
So,
I've always said, leading by example is so important. What you're talking about here, like, so you and I, we are in the fitness industry, so it comes with a high expectation that we would lead by example. But my dad, he never worked as a fitness professional. Well, I mean, he did manage a gym briefly, but
uh-huh.
he never worked as a fitness professional. But he always made a priority to work out, and that sort of instilled in me this healthy lifestyle. And he at 63 is still picking up speed. He's actually not slowing down.
That's awesome.
He's getting better. He comes to our classes that we have at the gym I own here in Wilmington, Asylum Fitness. He comes to a couple of my classes a week, and then works out the other days on his own. But he's still learning new skills and still gaining a lot. And,
Uh-huh.
and you can keep learning new things and keep growing and keep developing. But you're so spot on. Like, it is up to us as fathers, as parents, to teach our kids a healthy lifestyle, because it's so hard. I run into these people that they are my age, but they've never worked out. They're my age when they're deciding. They're 32, 33, 34, and they're like, I need to do something about it because my metabolism's changed. And for them, it's just a weight thing. But really, it was never a weight thing. It should have been all along a wellness and
Fitness.
a longevity and a how good can you feel thing is what it should have been the whole time.
Yes, we weren't someone should have told us at a very early age. See, like I'm very. I don't believe in the way like what we were taught in school is the right way, and about life, about things like that. Because a lot our parents didn't have. Um, well, especially like from my parents were the beginners of the baby boomer generation, and they became the nuclear family. You know what I mean? And they had conveniences. They had conveniences that their parents and the generations before didn't have. Now, all of a sudden, every home has a washing machine that's an automatic washing machine. My grandmother had a washing machine that I remember when I was a kid. It had a ringer on there. When you were done, it was above the tub, and you had to hand crank the clothes through there to squeeze out the water. And my mother had an automated washing machine, and then it led on to microwaves and an easier lifestyle, a more cushy lifestyle. Now my grandfather, my mother's father, was slightly into fitness. He was a boxer when he was younger to make money to put on the table. He was an immigrant. My mother's side of the family was Slovak, which is kind of like Polish or Russian area, Slavic people. And
I'm familiar.
and my father's
I happen to
family.
be really good at geography.
Yeah, there you go. And my father's family is Sicilian and Southern Italian. So the my mother's side of the family, the men were all big. They were very large men, and especially back in the 1920s when they were young. My grandfather was like 6'4" or 6'5", and when he passed away, he was sick for 4 years and still weighed near 300 pounds. 8 men carried his coffin instead of the usual 6. So
That's a big guy, especially in that time period.
yeah, and he
I
used
was
to
like
he was an
five.
he delivered
10.
ice.
Wow,
And
that's cool.
so for people who don't know, an Iceman used to drive up in an old like Model A or Model T Ford truck, and he would take a giant pair of scissors that had hooks on the end of them instead of blades, and he'd grab a chunk of ice that weighed about 40 or 50 pounds, throw a strap of leather over his shoulder to insulate his shoulder, put the ice with these tongs, like holding them with one in each hand, like their big hand, like scissor handles, and he'd keep them clipped together. And there was no elevators in the buildings where working class people lived, and he would have to walk up flights of stairs in New York City to deliver these blocks of ice to put in people's. Before refrigerators, there was ice boxes, and they used to slide a piece of big 40-pound piece of ice in the top, shut the door, and then below it the cold air would fall down and refrigerate whatever was in there. And that was like the predecessor of of the modern refrigerator. And that was his job when he was young. So think about it. He was walking up flights of stairs with a 40-pound load on him. It's like carrying a 40-pound kettlebell and walking up, 10 flights of stairs. And like do that.
That's awesome.
Every day, like 10 times a day. And that was his job. And then he actually used to he used to bootleg whiskey for, believe it or not, Joe Kennedy. And he would deliver in New York City. And my grandfather made a lot of money doing that, delivering. He would deliver it. He didn't actually make it. He would deliver it because he could pick up a whiskey barrel by himself and get it off the truck and put it on a cart and wheel it in. So he didn't have to pay another guy to come with him.
Don, I always say this. I ask people this. I ask this question all along. I'm going to ask it because answer here. When is it ever at your disadvantage to be stronger than you currently are?
Oh, never.
Financially, it made him. He didn't have to split money with somebody else. He was making more money picking up these whiskey barrels. That's hilarious because he was stronger than.
Well, what happened was he actually moved his whole family, and I'm talking like his parents came, they all came on a boat, and he moved everybody out of the Lower East Side of Manhattan and up into Westchester County because of the money he made doing that. That was at a time when, the parents still lived with the kids and the grandkids lived in the house. Then it was everybody was in one house. And I mean, there was 5 of us when I was young growing up. We lived in an apartment. There was 5 of us in a 1-bedroom apartment until my father built our house. But the correlation I was trying to make was my grandfather was this big, strong guy. And even when he was an old man, I seen him carry a steam radiator, which is like the size of I don't even know, like the size of a stove. And, like half the size of a regular stove that you have in your house, about that big. And he carried it down a flight of stairs when he was an old man, when he was my grandpa. I'm watching this at 5 years old and I'm going, my grandfather's the strongest man in the world. He's Hercules. But I don't think my father, now that was the correlation I was going to make, because of living the easier lifestyle. He didn't have to work. He worked hard and he worked physical jobs, but he didn't have to work like my grandfather did. So I think my grandfather was probably stronger than my father. And progressively, if my father had had a real physical job, he would have been stronger than me because of the more conveniences we have in the world to make our lives less physical. Because
I think it's everybody. People were a lot tougher back then, and I heard this thing one time. I don't know where I heard it from or if there's a citation on it, so don't anybody quote me on it. But I heard it was something like they took a few of these NFL players and they put them through the daily work of a like 1915 or something like that. So like the shaking of a rug and wringing out of laundry by hand and all this stuff that you would have to do by hand. But it's actually fairly laborious, and it wore them out pretty bad. Like a lot of these guys struggle with some of the stuff. And I was like, you know what? Like, even I have the example when people are like, nah, that can't be true. These guys are big, strong athletes. It's like, yeah, they're great athletes and they're phenomenally strong and amazingly fast for their size. But if you think about it, like if I asked you to go do log work and you haven't done it because you don't have to do it, it would break you. But if you went with somebody who does it, if they're going to be like, this is no sweat, let's go get a beer now. Like you're going to be like, I just want to go get in the bathtub and pass out.
Exactly.
I mean, you just have to put it in perspective, but the point is well taken that like when things get easier for you, we work less with our body. Our body is required to do less, and therefore it's just a weaker body, period. So we have to make sure that we put time in to create healthy habits for ourselves and for our children, because it's getting easier and easier and easier. Everything's getting easier now.
Oh yeah. Do you know? Are you familiar with Doug Siemens out of? I think he's out of North Carolina somewhere. What's a big city in your state? Charlotte.
You got Charlotte's real big. Yep,
Yeah,
that's where I'm from originally.
Doug's a kettlebell athlete out of Charlotte. He owns a kettlebell gym over there, and the name escapes me. I know he does. He also makes Art of War apparel, which is some nice stuff. And he posted something yesterday. We were talking about that your father's generation was stronger than you, and I was reading about that, and I was looking at the comments and stuff like that. And if you take out if you take the physicality of everything, like where I seen what my grandpa did when we were. When I was a kid, and then I saw how my dad worked, and it more leaning towards the automation and things that are that way. Now more than ever, we need fitness in our lives. We don't have to go out and dig a garden by hand anymore. I mean, I was taught to do that, and I was talking about this yesterday, and I forget sometimes my age. And then there was a young woman that was posting about, it was about maleness, like the older generations were more man than you and stuff like that. It was one of them things, and it wasn't so much the like I think people were leaning towards the acceptance of like how males are evolving, and a little more in touch with their emotions and things like that, and a little more comfortable. But then when you look at what these guys had to do, and I posted something about like getting doing work or something like that, and they were saying, well, I don't need a man that knows how to fix things around the house. And then I started thinking, I was like, okay, people don't need that anymore, because they were talking about manliness and how men aren't able to use tools anymore, and they're becoming very very I don't know, like urbanized, I guess you would say. I don't know how it is. Like they're losing what things that are called,
Demasculinated.
yeah, demasculinated. They're losing things that are traditionally man, like a lot of guys don't have toolboxes anymore and things like that. And I was looking at that and I'm going, well, I can't really change the way progress is going. What I can do is to let them know that now more than ever, this generation now and the next one and the next one, they are going to need fitness more than they know. And I was going back to the toolbox thing, and things that are traditionally male. And I was thinking in the shower this morning, I was thinking about it a little more, and I was washing my hair, and I'm going, these folks don't realize that, some people, like out of necessity, I keep a toolbox in my house so I don't have to spend money to have a repairman or a plumber or a carpenter come over to my house to do a minor repair that's going to cost me $200 for this, $200 for that. I was raised to hold on to my money, not to spend my money. And I think that's what a lot of the younger people are missing nowadays, is that, it might be all cool and dandy that you don't know how to do guy things, but you're paying someone else to do this stuff. You're paying someone else to change the oil in your truck or your car or your air filter even, or when you get a flat, you have to wait for AAA to come instead of changing it yourself. And, that to me is things that all cost money. And I was saying, I didn't have the luxury of growing up having other people do things for myself. I had to learn how to do this stuff myself. And that's what I think I was getting in the frustration of when they're saying, well, men don't need to have toolboxes anymore and things like that. And I was like, wait a second, there's a reason for this. And as well, I guess people are comfortable now. They're rich enough to be able to afford the repairman all the time.
I don't know if I think it's even a money thing, and this is certainly a soapbox. I don't mind getting on for a little bit, and without getting too political, I think that is under attack. Period. Right?
It is
Like
definitely the culture of maleness is
bad to be. Femininity is under attack. Right? We can say it. Everybody knows it, and. But even what you're saying, like even the way you said it, it doesn't even have to be said that way. Like you're like, carrying a tool bag into a man stuff. Why not just being self-sufficient because you're a freaking human being? Like, That drives me nuts when people can't do stuff for themselves.
Because you're told that people aren't self-sufficient.
Right, exactly. It's like you have to depend on other people. And that drives me nuts. Like, I am so big on self-reliance and being able to take care of yourself.
Exactly. Thank you.
It is like everybody should have a tool bag. I've got 2 in my car. They go with me everywhere I go.
Yes.
And I can't tell you how many times, like, I've just been somewhere and somebody else needed a tool because they didn't have it. I was like, oh, here, I got my ratchet set with me right here.
See, now you're prepared and you've got all this out there, but people are being told by people who are like like society leaders, like people who are believe it or not, a woman who was a chancellor at a college in Vermont was telling me that there's no such thing as a self-made man. And I told her if she believed that, if she truly believed that our conversation needs to end right now, because you're going to tell me that she says everything that you've learned. She told me that everything that you've learned has been taught to you by someone who was making money off of it. And I said, how do you figure? My parents taught me how to read. And I didn't learn to read in school. My parents taught me how to. Actually, my grandmother taught me how to read. And she taught me how to read the same way that she was taught how to read when she went to English classes at night after working as a seamstress all day long in a sweatshop back in the 1920s and somewhere in New York City. And, she would go to school at night to learn how to speak English because she didn't want to be, like she said, a dumb immigrant. And that's something that's our self-reliance. When you're being told that you're not self-reliant, that you're not, you didn't learn that by yourself. I know at least 20 guys that taught themselves how to weld. They bought a welder. Nobody ever reads an instruction manual. You know what I mean? Instruction manuals are like,
no, because they're like 30 different languages. I can never find which one's supposed to be mine. I hate those things.
Yeah. So like, I know these guys that learned how to weld just by trial and error.
I think that learning by doing is, that's the way to do things anyway. Like,
sure.
Even in fitness, like, even in your body, if you listen to your body, right, it gives you so much biofeedback and so much cues if you can listen to that. Like, hey, that one didn't feel right, but this one felt like I was definitely in the groove of what I was supposed to be doing.
Exactly. That
what I mean? You can do it with tools or learning a skill like welding or woodworking or tree work. I do a lot of tree work on the side because I like running a chainsaw. It makes me feel fantastic.
Yep, there's nothing. I'll tell you what. That's like
run a saw for 4 or 5 hours. I just like, I was manly as crap today. Like, that was awesome.
Yes. That's. I'll tell you, a chainsaw is like right below shooting like a high-powered gun.
Yeah, it's like what a rush.
Yeah, it is. It's like crazy, and but I get what you're saying.
But you learn by doing, and that's the thing is we are becoming a society of non-doers. Period. Across everything, and just non-do it. Just sit and watch. Like, watch other people's lives on TV with reality TV. Watch other people's lives through social media. Whatever. Just, it doesn't matter. Nobody is doing anything anymore. Like,
no, that's the problem.
It's like whole passive sedentary society that we've become, and it's going to be guys like you on the front line out there to inspire and create the next generation and inspire the current generation to get off their ass and get something done in this world.
Yes, and that is like the major point where I said, when I spoke earlier in the beginning, when I said that, I got laid off from that company, and that where I was getting to, like I have the backstory and then the story about where I became, and it's your plug right here. Where I became awake and alive was on January 17th of 2013. I got a DUI, and that was my mugshot picture, and
so 4 years ago.
Yeah, so right? That's 4 years ago. Actually, I gave wrong information. It was on January. Yeah, January. I'm sorry. That was the time. That was even, no, that was earlier than that. I can't even remember the date. That might have been in 2011. Okay, so I can't even remember the arrest date now. It's been so long ago, and I put it out of my mind. But that day, when the cop arrested me, and I was found not guilty, by the way, which is really weird for a DUI case. But I really wasn't drunk. I just had alcohol on my breath. Um, but buzz driving is drunk driving. You know, I know that whole thing. But I ended up losing the job that I had as a cell phone tower climber because I was their crane operator also. So no one else had a license to drive the commercial vehicle, the CDL, that heavy. And they let me go. And the crane company that I work for called me back and said, we have a 8-month job if you're interested in it. And they said, you want to come back? We don't, you don't need your license to do this, your regular driver's license. We just need a crane operator. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And in that time, I had gone to court 13 times over 2 years before I was finally found not guilty. And it was just such a sham. You know, if everybody, the whole court system is screwed up. I mean, I really realized that as an adult going through it, rather than just being arrested and having a lawyer handle it like I used to do previously, I did it all with a public defender, and I'm seeing how screwed up our judicial system really is. And it's a very not fair system. And for everybody, not just for certain people, for everybody. So if you ever get arrested, you're already in a bad position. Trust me. And so I ended up losing a job. The crane company calls me back, and then I said, when I got arrested, and I was sitting there in the back of the cop car, and the cop was kind of a smart ass. And a few minutes into the ride, when he was driving me down to the next testing center, he was saying to me, "Oh, what are you looking so mad for? You look like you're going to kill me." And and of course, the guy's taunting me while I'm in handcuffs behind a cage, in his car. And I said, "I'm not mad." I said, "I'm trying to figure out my life right now." And he said, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, all my life I try to get like good jobs and do the right thing. And, I ran into trouble a few times. I said, as you can see, when you arrested me and everything else. I said, for the most part, I try to do everything good. I said, you know what? I said, when I come through all of this, I said, it's all going to be different. And I said, this is changing my life. I told the cop that. And, and that's when I decided that, especially after I got let go from the job, I knew I was going to get fired from the cell phone tower climber job. As soon as I called them and told them I got arrested, they said, "We got to let you go." That was their line. They didn't say, "Are you okay? Or is everything all right?" They just said, "We have to let you go." And they said,
That's kind of cold-blooded, man.
Yeah, it is. And this is corporate America. This was a big corporation. This wasn't like Tony's Tower Climbing Company. This is a big company. They're in 25 states. They require a lot of things. It's a real company. I thought I was going to retire from them, just as I thought I was going to retire from the crane company too when I got laid off, like 6 years later. But, I started adding this up in my head, and then, I decided that I have to do something for myself. Again, I've been in business, a few times for myself. I've been in business for myself about half my life. I'm a very unique person in that I've had, since I was 15 years old, I've had 42 different jobs. I've only been fired from one. I've been laid off from one. So that, I don't know if that says anything good about me or.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, is that do you just, ready for the next thing, or?
That was pretty much it.
I would assume multiple jobs at one time too. I assume that, holding down 2-3 jobs at once in order to get that number also, right?
Yes, I did work a couple jobs at once. The most frequent I did was a few years ago, about 20 years ago. I owned a restaurant, and it was a breakfast and lunch place, and then I would close up over there, and I would go down and run at the time, my father-in-law's restaurant till 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, and then 6 o'clock in the morning, I'd be back opening my place again. So
that's insane, brother. That's insane.
Yeah, and they, that I said, I can't live like that anymore. I can't live like a worker. you know, unless it's a very skilled, very high-end worker. But I said, you know, now is the time. When I realized I got let go from this job, the other company called me back, you know, when they heard that I was available, and because they needed someone at the time. But you know, I still wasn't keen on all that. And that's when I decided to start doing all of my Adex Club things to make it come to fruition. I had up until that time, it was 2011. I'm sorry, that's when I got arrested. Was January 17th of 2011. It took me to January 7th of 2013 to be not found not guilty. Fast and speedy trial, huh? So that right there, that whole incident led me to developing the Adex clubs and doing stuff for myself, whether, you know, and take that chance. And I said, you know, I've had businesses before, but I never looked at them the same way, with as much passion and as much desire to make something happen out of it as after the DUI arrest. And that's when I said, I really have to. So while I had time, while I was doing this crane job, I was sketching out my prototypes, and then finally found somebody to make it. And in 2012, I got it rolling, and that's when it all started. In 2013, I think I finally came out like full blown. I had it, you know, like doing it full time. So that was kind of like a unique thing in my life, where I took a negative, and it took me that time to wake up and say, hey, you know, you had a good job. You were living like a rock star while you were doing it. You know, granted, I did deserve that DUI. I will not say that I didn't deserve it. I was out every night because of the fact that I did this crazy job where, you know, like the crane operators tell you when you're learning how to do this, you know, they would say things like, you got cigarettes on you? And at the time I smoked. They say, you got cigarettes on you? And I'm like, yeah. They go, have a cigarette, because, you know, the next time you pull that lever might be the last time you pull that lever. Even with an empty hook, you could flip this thing over. And I'd be like, holy crap, this is the kind of stress these guys, you know, work under. You know, this is what I'm being taught.
That's tough stuff right there, man.
Yeah, and then add to that the fact of being a tech on a tower crane, and we were constantly on them, repairing them, or going in and filling in for that. I have a housemate that still lives with us to this day. He's been here for about 10 years in my home, and he's still a crane operator. And the first day that I met him, the day prior to that, he had tipped over a tower crane and survived in Coral Gables in Florida. There was a year like around 2004, I think. There was a whole bunch of cranes tipping over all over the United States, and he was one of them. And this guy lived in a tower crane accident. And you know, so we always had that in the back of our mind. So we were two single guys, and we were out every night. You know, go home, take a shower, bang, go out, and we'd have our favorite bars that we'd go to, and you know, we'd be out drinking and hooting it up till the next day, because you know, we weren't sure, you know, we were living like Vikings, in other words. Right. You know, working hard all day long, hard and heavy, and then go out and party all night long. And you know, the girls, the drinking and everything else that goes along with it, you know, we were right in the middle of that. There was nothing for me to go out and spend $100 on myself at like Morton's Steakhouse. You know, I'd go in there greasy from work. I wouldn't care. There's all other people are all dressed up, you know, like lawyers and doctors in there, and we're sitting there at a table full of crane operators getting all loud and everything, you know, because we're that was just, you know, what we did. And you know, I realized, you know, it was fun and exciting at the time, but for longevity, that's not a future. You know, there's no future in that. And
the high stress, the anxiety, the sleep, the alcohol, the cigarettes, all that adds up real quick, and it ages you fast too.
Yeah, it will age you fast. You know, and like I said, I was doing, you know, small amounts of fitness in there to be able to stay, you know, have the ability to do my job, because I had to climb, I had to carry heavy things up, you know, up ladders and stuff. And I'm not talking a ladder that's like 10 feet high. I'm talking a ladder that's 100 feet high, 200 feet high.
Yeah, no, I've seen them. They look absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, they're cool as hell, though. I gotta say that it is the most insane feeling you'll ever have in your life to if you ever get a chance to sit in one, and especially if they let you operate it a little bit. But I realized then that I had to do something for myself, and I had to straighten out my life and get, to someplace, because, otherwise I'd just be a worker for somebody. And I said, I really, I had a little desire to be a little bit out in the public eye and do something. I wanted to contribute to society. And rehabilitating my injury in my shoulder with clubs that I had made myself, I started to realize, and the reason I made these clubs myself was because I couldn't afford them at the time. I started rehabilitating my shoulder when I was digging those holes. And I used to work for $9 an hour to be able to change careers. I sucked that up for a whole year. And in that time, I wanted to rehabilitate my shoulder. I couldn't afford the clubs. They were very expensive. So I took a one-sided dumbbell and I started using that. And I started copying what I could see, what was available on the internet or from books and stuff like that. And then sometime around 2007, I discovered Scott Sonnen and, the club bell training. And I said, wow, they're making
Yes.
these things,
Scott's really influential. A lot of guys.
Oh yeah, and and he was also he's a sambo fighter, which is a Russian grappling style of fighting, and he developed his club work to be as supplemental training for his sambo fighting. He fought in the Olympiad, and he was a silver medalist in that, I believe, and. I saw the clubs were made out of metal and they were heavy and they were going up to 45 pounds. And I'm like, there's something to this. My shoulder feels better since swinging this light one-sided dumbbell. And then I made my first clubs out of T-ball bats. And I've still got a few of them around the house. My daughter said to keep them for the museum. And, I developed a club, which, was the precursor to what is now what I'm selling. But I still have that club. I train with it every day. It's my baby, and I love it. My first 25-pound adjustable Adex Club. I still have all of that. But it was just a mindset of being arrested and having that feeling of helplessness, and also the arrest made other people look at me, like businesses look at me like, we don't want you anymore. Even though you're a valued employee and you work your ass off and you'll do anything that we ask, we just don't want you anymore because you might be a problem person. We're turning our back on you. And
you get that stigma. That stigma
yeah,
that sticks with you. And
yeah, but I also felt like like these guys could have helped me and they didn't. It would have been, like my manager could have said, hey, listen, we could keep you on. We can have you do until you get your temporary license or whatever. We could have you do office work or warehouse work or repair work, or the other guys can drive the vehicle there and you can run it. They didn't even take that into consideration. They just said, nope. And I said, I never want to be that expendable again. So
back to self-sufficient, self-reliance that we talked about earlier in the conversation. Depend on you.
Yeah, depend on me, my idea, and my ability to do what I am doing. And I think that is something that and of everything, if I could convince a person to go into business for themselves, to be more self-reliant, to believe in themselves more, because so much change. I used to think, that all self-belief stuff is all hokey. Those motivational guys are just taking people's money. There's a lot of truth in that stuff, because prior to that, I'd believe in myself to be able to work for someone else. I'd put myself in these ridiculously dangerous situations. Cell phone tower climbers, this most dangerous job in America. There's only 15,000 cell phone tower climbers in the whole United States. 15,000. And there's a reason for that. And, people don't want to do it. Number one, it's dangerous. Now, I was a guy that was afraid of heights up until, like probably about 8 years before I became a cell phone tower climber, 9 years before that. And I was deathly afraid of heights. And I overcame my fear of heights because I said, I want to learn how to do this damn job, and I'm going to do it. And I just started, I said, and I used to say to the guys, hey man, I'm afraid to climb that. How do I do this? And they tell me where to look while I was climbing so I wouldn't get like vertigo. because people could instantly get vertigo climbing up a high ladder. And they would tell me where to look, what to do if I started getting it. They had all these little tricks. It was pretty cool. And then, I'd start working with them, and then you eventually you're doing it on your own. And then you realize that your life could end at any time when you start working before you clip your safety harness to something. And that's when I realized, I said, you know what? I said, this is for someone else's company. This is for me to make a living, not to make a future. This is just a living. I said, and I'm being that, comfortable in a dangerous situation for someone else to make money off of me. I said, I've got to start doing stuff for myself. And the arrest was the thing that really pushed it over the edge when I said, wow, like this could be all taken from me just like that. I was a crane operator on January 17th in the morning. On January 18th in the morning, I was unemployed.
You're unemployed. So what would you say? We're gonna wrap it up here. What would be your takeaway point? Like, okay, let's say something to the person who hasn't, but they're living a life. It doesn't even have to be. They don't have to be like drinking and driving, but they've got a life that you see as kind of where you came from. They're just sort of trapped.
And they're like doing something that's detrimental to themselves.
What do you say? Not necessarily detrimental, but they're not.
They're not progressing.
You said you had an Awaken Alive moment, the namesake of our website.
Yes.
How do you encourage people to have or discover that Awaken Alive moment for themselves?
Well,
what steps do people need to take?
The first thing I'll tell them not to do, don't wait until you get arrested for something stupid. Okay. To decide that, you need to change your life, or let's put it this way, that you want to change your life. You have to, in the very beginning of everything, you have to want to be able to change your life. So if you've got a job and you're making 30 grand a year and you're like, yeah, I'm making 30 grand a year, but I'd like to start a family and everything else, so I need to make a little more money. Well, you just can't ask your boss for more money and it magically appears. You have to do something. So you have to change. You have to believe in yourself first. You have to really I think I personally got to the point of being sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that doesn't work for everybody all the time. There's some people that aren't sick and tired, but just want to get better. So the thing is to believe in yourself and to find one thing to focus on and aim for that thing. Whether it's a better job and you have to learn how to do it, or if you have to take a course, or if you have to, like I did, like develop a product and bring it to fruition, or start a company. I don't know what to do. But the first thing is, the most important thing is, you have to start. The more you think about it and the more you research it, the more time you're wasting. Starting doing gets the ball rolling. And I started by researching whether or not there was enough, there was an adjustable club. When I found out that there was an adjustable club, I said, well, how do I get a patent? And I started looking up all these things while I was still working, but I was already going in the direction that you can't really stop. You keep the momentum going. So before people get sick and tired of being sick and tired, if you've got the awareness of it, that's when you should start trying to change your life for the better, or actually actually changing your life for the better. And that means when you come home after your 8 hours worth of work, you have to put another 8 hours in, and then you've got 8 hours to sleep, and then 8 hours to work, and then 8 hours doing your own thing, and 8 hours of sleep, just like that every day, until you get to where you can say, I'm where I want to be.
Yeah, sometimes it requires sleepless nights and sacrifice to make what you want out of life happen.
Yes, and I think a lot of people don't try because they're complacent. They plug in. They just plug into the lifestyle. You watch Fight Club. Like you probably know almost every line of Fight Club, right? I mean, what normal man doesn't? And
I've never seen it. No, I'm just kidding. I've seen it a bunch.
All right.
No, I just want to. I've seen it several times. I just wanted to do that because I needed that.
Oh, that's great. No, so but like Fight Club, like when he's talking and he's in the bathtub and he's saying, I called my dad and I asked him, what should I do? He says, you graduated college? graduated high school, go to college. Okay, Dad, I graduated college. Okay, get a job. Okay, get married. That was like the things, where it's not, those are all good things, and you can make those good things happen and be really good for you. But that's not how it's supposed to be. That's not necessarily how it should be for everybody either. If you feel you have the desire to do something, just do it. Just go ahead and do it. Throw all caution to the wind. You've got the rest of your life to pick yourself up again. I've been broke more times than I can count on my 10 fingers. And I'm talking broke where, I'm filing less than $20,000 a year on my tax return. Okay, so I know what it's like to be poor. I lived in a house growing up. There was 5 of us in a 1-bedroom apartment until my father built his own house because he couldn't afford to buy one. He actually built it from a kit from Sears. So I had this great background of a self-sufficient man. Where you go along and then life, where you're complacent and you're just plugging into that system, and that's like living death to me now. Like if somebody told me I had to go work for someone else, I'd be like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I can't do it anymore. I've been on my own for 6 years now, self-employed, and it's definitely not without hardships. And I've seen good years, and I've seen just flat broke. I mean, I've definitely
you understand that.
I filed under 20,000 multiple times myself, so I understand it. But
yep,
I
but
wouldn't
I've also had those years where I filed over 100,000, and I'm proud of them. I didn't graduate college. I barely got out of high school, and I'm making a 6-figure income, and I was like, whoa, look how cool I am. I could do that. But then I was also broke again, and I had those, before and after. So I know what it's like to live, when they say, oh, well, it's easy for you to say because you might have had crane operator money stored up. I went through my crane operator money that I had saved up in less than a year. You
went through it. You went through it every night. Dropping all that money at the bar and at the restaurant.
I actually got a phone call from an owner of a bar who said, hey, I miss you coming in. Nobody else is paying my electric bill.
That's funny,
yeah, and that's sad, but that's what led me to believe that, hey, I can either make X amount of dollars a year for someone or X amount of dollars a year for myself if I just struggle through it. Yes, you're going to be poor while you're doing it. It's inevitable. Most businesses, you're going to be broke doing it. Prepare for that. Get used to living, hand to mouth. Get used to eating rice for dinner and rice for breakfast, because you're cooked 5 pounds because that's all you can afford for 3 days until you made some money. So that goes without saying. Where people said to me, you're, like I said, you got crane operator. I lost my retirement 3 times. I lost 3 IRAs 3 times in 3 market crashes in my lifetime. All right, I don't want that to happen anymore. So now I put my investment in my product, so that hopefully someday someone will say, hey, I'd like to buy this product from you. You marketed it and built it up to this, we'd like to purchase it. And that hopefully will be my retirement, or part of my retirement.
Maybe somebody listening to the show hears it and they think that maybe that's who your buyer is.
Oh yeah, I still want to be involved in it because it's my baby, and I want to be. I love doing the seminars. It's something that I really didn't even talk about. So I do the training seminars and the workshops for athletes and coaches. So that's another thing that I love, traveling to go and meet the people. I have such a good time. I was out at the Arnold, and I'm walking around in the middle of the Arnold. There's 80,000 people there that day. And I'm walking around in there, and we actually had mace competition going on. But when I had free time,
I saw it.
Yeah, it was awesome stuff. But when I'm walking around the Arnold, I got people tugging on my shirt. They're going, Adex, I watch your videos. I got a club. It's not one of yours, but I train with the stuff. And I'm like, that's cool. And somebody else comes up to me, high fives me. Dude high fives me. He goes, hey, I bought one of your clubs 2 years ago. I'm like, holy crow, this is weird. And it was like, like I was on this big high for the whole weekend that it was just incredible. But I'm glad I can change, help change someone's lifestyle, you know, for the better, that they're getting into fitness because of my product, or they're continuing with their fitness, or they rehabilitated themselves because of my product, you know, and that means the world to me. That means more than what the money, you know, coming in, you know, really does, when I hear people tell me that they've gotten better or healthier because of it. So as far as like going out and meeting the folks and doing the seminars and stuff, I hope I'm always able to do that. So if that person that wants to buy it is listening, you know, I want to stay on as the instructor.
Well, dude, I think that's a great plug, and I think that's an awesome way to end the show. We are way over time, but I cannot thank you enough for being on the show. This was hands down one of my favorite ones we've done.
Oh, that's
really,
awesome.
really great.
Mark, that's so cool.
No, Don, thank you so much. Real quick, we're gonna get it listed on the website too. But real quick, your where people can find you on Facebook, and thank you.
Okay.
Where people can find you on Facebook, your website, and then if you have any upcoming seminars that you want to go ahead and just say the dates and the location. And then we'll get all that information on the website for you as well.
Sure. Upcoming workshop is going to be in the Orlando area of Castleberry, Florida. It's going to be at CrossFit Battle Cry. It's going to be Ricky Mendez's box up there. So if you guys know Ricky Mendez and you're in the Orlando area, or even if you want to drive for that, it's going to be a small. It's going to be a low price workshop. It's going to be like a $20 or $30. I don't even know what the tickets are. You can get them on Box Tribe, by the way, the boxtribe.com. And you can register for the event there to say that you're going, and you get a discount if you go there. Then there's going to be another one, and I can't remember the name of that gym. It's a weightlifting gym that's going to be up in Orlando, and that's about 3 hours away from me. That's going to be coming up. Ricky's event is going to be on May 6th, and I think the next one is going to be in June, but I'm not sure the date, so I'm going to have to post that on my website. My website is adexclub.com. That's ADEXCLUB.com. That's where you can purchase Adex Clubs. Right now, I'm taking the pre-orders. They are going to be done in a week. So just go ahead and order. It's going to be about 2 weeks before you get it, just to let you know. And my Facebook page, the best place to get a hold of me is at Don Giafardino on Facebook. And that my name is Don, D-O-N, and last name is G-I-A, F as in Frank, A-R-D-I-N-O, because I post more there than on my Adex Club Facebook page. The Adex Club Facebook page kind of sucks. I like my regular one better. So you can find me there, and I'm also on Instagram under Adex Club, and I believe Twitter is also Adex Club. So I post very rarely on Instagram and Twitter, but more on Facebook and YouTube. There's a lot of YouTube videos. Look up Adex Club, and you'll find a lot of videos of what you can do with the clubs and the maces. And don't forget, we do the competitions with the Vintage Strength Games. It takes 5 minutes to learn these competitions. It's going to take a lifetime to master. This year, it's going to be huge. Last year was our inaugural year. It was all beginner, and everybody was brand new at it. This year, we can see what the athletes are doing. The rules are getting a little tighter, and the competition is getting a lot better. The men are calling for heavier maces, which there's going to be some new products coming out very, very soon on the Adex page about the heavier stuff. So I hope you guys take a look and see what's going on.
That's awesome, man. That's exciting, and we're happy to help you out. Ladies and gentlemen, Don Giafardino, thank you so much for being on the show, and we look forward to hearing from you more and having you on again sometime.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you for having me on.
Have a good one, man.
You too.